Okay, I think we're about at capacity here, so we'll get rolling. My name is Dan Fluitt, and I'm the Vice President of Clouds, Portals, and Collaborations here at Talon. And we will be doing a presentation today on Azure administration for state and local government around Azure for state and local government. So I'm going to try and not bore you today. I don't have any slides. Everything is going to be speaking and hands-on. So I didn't want to bore people with slide decks, but I wanted to dive right into it and kind of get people's appetite going for Azure. And what we're going to do is we're going to start out with a lot of questions that we get are, how do I even buy Azure? So we're going to start out with that. We're going to go into once how you buy it, and then get into some of the governance and subscription management inside of Azure. We're also going to take a quick look at the enterprise agreement portal that kind of builds on how you buy it and how you put some governance around your Azure subscription. Then we're going to jump into the screen that I have presented here that is the Azure Portal and how you kind of go through, administer the day-to-day workings of Azure, how you can secure things down, how you can assign permissions, assign access, deny access, different types of user roles in there. And then we will be wrapping it up around how you can see some cost and how you can see the billing and reporting inside of Azure. So we will probably be going for about 30 to 45 minutes, and I hope that you enjoy it. So first, we're going to start out with a lot of people when they come and we do these different presentations and do Azure engagements, people are not even sure how to buy Azure. So for a lot of state and local governments, the way that people are buying it is through an enterprise agreement, and that's just like a enterprise agreement that you would have to buy any of your software today. And the way that it's done with Azure is it's a separate enterprise agreement, and you can sign up for a commitment amount, and it could be as much or as little as you want. And the enterprise agreement will say, all right, if we sign up for $10,000, you have a kind of a $10,000 credit with Microsoft. And then as you start to consume services inside of Azure, that $10,000 credit just gets chipped away at. And the first question we always get is, what if I sign up for $10,000 and we agree to a price, a price per service? And what happens if I go over that $10,000? Am I going to get charged more? Am I going to get a penalty? What's going to happen? And the simple answer is that nothing bad happens. You sign up for a commitment amount and you start to chip away. If you start to go over that commitment amount, the prices still stay the same as if you were in the commitment. The price doesn't go up. And then depending on how much you go over that commitment amount, if it goes over by certain amounts, then you will be billed quarterly to kind of make up the difference, is what everybody always used to talk about, truing up on an enterprise agreement. So as the months go on, if you go over, you get billed quarterly until the next year. Then your enterprise agreement will reset. You pay the $10,000 up front, start chipping away, and then that's how a lot of people will buy Azure. You can also buy it through cloud solution providers, and depending on the cloud solution provider, you can buy it through them. And the biggest difference with that is when you buy Azure, buy cloud services through a cloud solution provider, that cloud solution provider is your first line of support for anything that would go wrong with your Azure environment. If you had any questions or support type of calls, you would call that cloud solution provider. Talon is a cloud solution provider, and it's a select group of partners that Microsoft has selected, and you have to have a gold competency in cloud to be able to become one of these cloud solution providers. But what a lot of people are seeing and saying about buying it through cloud solution providers is the people that aren't as huge as Microsoft or as large as Microsoft. We have a lot of clients that they say, we're a much bigger fish in your pond than we are in Microsoft's pond, and we like the specialized support. You guys are helping us with development. Maybe you're helping us with managing our infrastructure. You understand our footprint, and you're a much better person to help support us than if we call into Microsoft and you get a new person each time. So those are the two most popular ways that people are buying Azure nowadays, is with an enterprise agreement or through a cloud solution provider. And so when you buy it through a cloud solution provider, depending on the cloud solution provider, you can have it billed month to month, and you get a bill month to month on, depending on how they do it, on usage, with some sort of markup that cloud solution provider would provide for you. So I will stop there with how to buy Azure. And the next thing that we're going to jump into is, once you buy Azure, and I will go through a scenario of an enterprise agreement in it, just for purposes of showing how things are set up, is once you bought Azure, and say if you signed an enterprise agreement, there is an enterprise agreement portal. And this is the management of your enrollment. And this is saying that, if you see about our enterprise agreement, we have a balance of 0 and we have an overage of $65,000. So this is something that gets billed back to Talon every quarter. And this is, as we go through, they'll just do it so that you don't get too far in the hole. So this is our enrollment. Once you have an enrollment, you can then break up that enrollment any way that you would like. And there's a very good illustration of this on Microsoft's site. And if anybody is really looking for this, they can take down this URL, or I could send it out after the webinar. And it really tells you the best practices of subscription governance, and there's a very, very good hierarchy of how this works. So you would buy Azure, you have an enterprise enrollment. You can break up your enrollment into one or many departments. You can then break a department up into one to many accounts, and then you can break up an account into one to many subscriptions. And this is something that has grown through the years and has kind of stuck with best practices with a lot of the people that are doing things inside of Azure. Because if you think about it, there's different ways to break this up. And the three most common ways are breaking them up in a functional pattern, where you have your enterprise enrollment, you have a finance department, you have an IT department, and then you have an account owner for each of those. Then you can break subscriptions up into a development subscription, production, and this is the way that most people tend to break things up that we've seen, is they will go and do it by functional. This gains you a lot of different things. Is one, depending on how you set up the security on it, is you have your enterprise enrollment, and then you can have multiple departments in here. And if you're in the finance department, most likely you're not seeing the IT department there. So you kind of only know what is going on in your functional area. And then, so you can break it up in terms of security, but it also breaks it up in terms of cost management. A lot of times when people are breaking up subscriptions, they want to say, all right, the development is going to go to this cost center, production is going to be capitalized, so it goes to this cost center. So it breaks up billing, and you can very easily go through and see, our development environment subscription is costing this much, our production is costing this much. You can also give, like in this scenario, you might say, all right, there's the development and the test. I'm going to give more people access to that because there's the developers that need to go in there. There's the testers that need to go in there. There may be a whole bunch of different people. But once it gets to production, we want to lock it down. So we're only going to give the IT staff access to the production subscription so that they can do deployments, they can, lock that environment down, where these ones are a little more wide open and you can let people do it. So usually when you break up subscriptions, they will do it people will do it because they want to break out costs and they also want to break out security. So as I said, this functional pattern is what we've seen has been the most adopted. There are other ones that will do it by business unit. In business unit, sometimes people will say, well, isn't that kind of functional? And it could be, it could not. When we see business unit a lot, it's when there is a parent company that has a bunch of different business units under it, or if there is a government agency that has a bunch of different agencies under it. The overarching government agency will probably have the enterprise agreement, and then they'll break something up for, the Department for Economic Housing. They might break it up for, the Department of Homelessness, and then all of those things, the overarching government agency can see what each of the agencies underneath is spending, and the agencies that are kind of sister agencies to each other won't be able to see what they're doing in there. So everything will get rolled up to the enterprise level, but it'll be able to let these people operate on their own and not have to go back to the overarching agency and saying, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that? Once it gets to this department level, the department is responsible for themselves and anything below it. Then the last pattern that is put around is a geographic pattern. And this comes into play a lot, not so much in government because the Azure Government Cloud is all staying within the United States. But where we've seen this pattern come into play is where there's different data laws. If anybody has ever done any work with Germany, the German data laws are very stringent and data can't leave Germany. So they'll set up departments inside of Germany and departments in North America, departments somewhere else, and manage it that way. So the geographic pattern, I won't want to say doesn't come into play, but a lot with state and local government is you're not going outside of your state or your locality. So this is a little bit more of something that we talk about more about commercial Azure for commercial clients opposed to state and local government. So this is normally how people will break up and have subscription management. And this is the beginning of their governance plan. Is a lot when we do these things, they say, we get it, we understand how to buy it. Now we need to put some governance around it. And then when you go in and do these, you can have, we can start to break down more fine-grained security of how we're going to do these. But you would go in and you would say, all right, here's your department. Let that department divide everything up into accounts and let them divide their accounts up into subscriptions. And a lot of people will say, like, what about this subscription? If I have access to Project One Dev, do I also have access to Project One Test? And the answer is automatically no. If you sign up and you made somebody a user on Project One Dev and Project One Test, it will show up as two different subscriptions, and people have access to them. Another thing that people will do a lot, and they'll say, all right, if I have a network in one subscription and I have a network in another subscription, can they talk to each other? And there is the ability to, depending on where your things are, to do network peering inside of there, but that's something that's relatively new inside of Azure. And I don't want to say that it's not recommended, but a lot of people are doing it. They're not necessarily dependent. If they're breaking up their subscriptions because of security, they're usually not peering or connecting the subscriptions in any way. So from there, I'm going to jump. So now that we've talked a little bit about how to buy Azure, how to break up subscriptions and start with some governance, we'll jump back to the Azure Portal. And inside of the Azure Portal, we have a whole bunch of different subscriptions inside of our account. So all of these things are different subscriptions that have different access levels for the people that do it. So another thing that people will ask all the time is, does it cost any more for multiple subscriptions? And the cost is the same whether you have one subscription or whether you have 100 subscriptions. You don't get charged anymore. It's just a logical breakup of how you have your enterprise agreement put together. And as I said before, most of the time it's done for security and for billing purposes. Your enterprise agreement will also, inside of your enterprise agreement portal, you can have reporting in there. So inside, when you look at reporting, as you can see, you have a rolling year of your spend. It's going to see how much you've spent each month, how much your overage is each month. And then you can, within each of these subscriptions or the account, there's a roll-up of charges by service of what we're doing here for services. Then you can break them down by different subscriptions to see what the spend has been. And this is just a very basic to see what spend has been over time. There is also the ability to download the usage that you had. So this will download a spreadsheet of all of the usage and more than you would ever want to know about Azure SKUs in your life. It'll break down when you have things, say if you had a virtual machine, there's a virtual machine that is on a network that has storage. It breaks down your pricing all the way down to the Azure SKU. And it's, for a lot of people, it's much more information than they've ever needed. So there is the monthly report download, there's advanced reporting download, and then for the people that are really ambitious, there's API access keys that will allow you to connect to this billing portal to be able to download usage. And if you're so well inclined, people will start to write code against this portal to be able to pull back and do their own type of reporting. There's also connectors for Power BI reporting to show all of the usage and show the different things that are going on inside of your Azure subscription with Power BI. So next, now that we've talked a little bit about how you buy Azure, how it's divided up, how you can go in and see a little bit of reporting, we're going to jump into the Azure portal itself. So what we have here is the Azure portal at portal.azure.com. When you log in, when you're logged in, you will be connected to one or many different subscriptions and directories. So right now I have a few different directories that I have access to, and a directory when you're looking in here is different Azure accounts. So there's a few different Azure accounts that I have access to. I'm just going to focus today on the Talon Azure account. So inside of the Talon Azure account, I have subscriptions that I have access to. So as we were just talking before, Talon has their account broken up into a number of subscriptions. So right now we're just focusing on the new hire training subscription. So when somebody is granted access to the new hire training subscription, we can go in and see the new hire training subscription. And this is the subscription itself. Go in, and on the subscription, it will show you some of your costs, some of your month-to-date cost, forecasted cost. This is a great thing for the administrators to go in and see how you're trending. And we always talk about people leaving the faucet running. And in the earlier days of Azure, somebody would spin up a virtual machine. They say, hey, I want to try and run this big, huge database just to see if I can do it. And what they didn't realize is that database may cost $5,000 a month. So at the end, they spin it up. They're like, oh, that's really cool. They get called away from their desk. They totally forget about it. And that database is up and running, and it's spinning away and chewing away at your money. By going in and looking at some of these cost estimates, some of the reporting things, you as an administrator would be able to say that, oh, wait a minute, we're starting to trend way more than our $100 a month. Let me take a look into here and see what's going on. So inside of the subscription here, you can very easily see what's going on. And it says down here that they are estimated, and there's a delay of what's compared to the Azure Portal. This is pretty much within an hour or so, pretty accurate of how things are trending. So you can go in and look at something and say, whoa, we look like we're going way out of whack here. Go into the subscription, see what's running, see what is costing a lot, and then go back to the person or go back to the group and say, this thing's running that's costing us $5,000 a month. Should it really be running? So when we go in, and people will ask a lot when we're doing this, when I have my Azure subscription, what kind of controls can I put in so that people will go in? Can I have people go in and just have a read-only view? Can I have people go in and just have a what kind of roles are there? So inside of the Azure subscription that we have here, there are all of our users that we have. So you can go in and add a new user. And you can safety and fluid. And go through, and inside of the directory role, we can make this person a user, a global administrator, which you normally don't want to do, or a limited administrator. And most of the time, for people that are just going in using Azure, looking around, creating, they're just going to be a regular user. So then once we have our users in here, we can pull up and we can see our users. Most of the time, if you're using Office 365, you will want your Azure Portal backed up by the same Active Directory as Office 365. So that the way that most people do this is when they run Office 365 or run Azure, Office 365, your users for Office 365 are stored in Azure Active Directory. So having your Azure subscription in your Office 365 tenant backed up by the same Azure Active Directory as an administrator gives you greater control over all of your users, and it makes it much easier for you to administer this, because 9 times out of 10, when you have that set up, your users are synced from your on-premises Active Directory out to Azure Active Directory. And so it's a one-way sync that pushes all of the users out to Azure Active Directory. And the great part about that is, if somebody left your organization, or, somebody new started, you can add that person in your on-premises Active Directory, and then it automatically gets pushed out to Azure Active Directory. So those people will have access to Office 365, they'll have access to Azure, and with Azure Active Directory, you can have many different third-party applications authenticate against it. And so if you see where I'm going with this, the great part about that is if a person leaves your organization, you just deactivate them in your on-premises Active Directory. That replication gets pushed out to Azure Active Directory. Now they no longer have access to your on-premises stuff. They also don't have access to Office 365 or Azure or anything that is authenticating against Azure Active Directory. So now if you're like the help desk people at Talon, your list of things to do when somebody starts or somebody leaves your organization gets less and less to do. You don't have to go and delete them from the HR system, delete them from this, delete them from that. Everything is based on your on-premises Active Directory, gets pushed out, replicated out. You lose access there, you lose access everywhere. So inside of the Azure Portal, you can go and you can make people full-on admins. You can have people that have read-only access. You can have people that are contributors that may be able to create some resources, may not be able to create some other resources. So that's how you can manage the users in here. So now a lot of people on the administration side will say, what happens if we want to have something and have things locked down to only certain groups of people, or how do we group things when we start to put things together inside of Azure? So there's a concept in here called a resource group. And when people are deploying new applications and going through and putting things into Azure, what the best practices is something that is deployed together. I always say deployed and destroyed together should be put inside of a resource group. So if you have a web application and it has a database and it may have some storage with it, and it may have a few different things that all go together, that if you said, all right, tomorrow we're discontinuing this whole thing, you put those types of things inside of a resource group together. Then, depending on the resource group, you can start to add and deny access to it that way. One of the other things that's nice about resource groups is when you click on a resource group, you can say, from an administrator thing, all of the things in this resource group, what is it costing me? So you can go through and start to look at the different things of how much something costs you. And this one is fantastic because it's free for us. But you can go through as an administrator and start to say that, there's something going on here, and it seems like this is too expensive. Can we go and pare back what we have, or can we if something is, a lot of times what will happen here is when we deploy an application, we think that the user capacity is going to be X, and then it finds out that, we only have half of the usage that we thought we were going to. So you can go back and pare down the machines, start to right-size your environment. And then the other thing that can happen is that what you deploy out there is so hugely successful that you need to make it bigger. And then they will look at it and say, all right, we're making X amount of dollars from this. Let's try and get our costs around here. So when you start to do it, you can look at reporting kind of real time of what's going on inside of those resource groups. Another piece of the management side of these is a lot of people will ask, what can we use to monitor these things, and what can we do around cost management and billing? So inside of the Azure Portal now, there is the whole cost management and billing piece that's built right into it. And when you start to go through, you can see that there's all of the different subscriptions that are in here that I have access to. I can start to drill down into them and look at our month-to-date charges. You can, and within here, you can look the last 12 months of, something, it looks like something really went awry here in August. So we were able to go in, see what was going on, and get it back on track with the rest of the months. When we go into the budgeting inside of the Enterprise Portal, you can set budgets for each subscription that says that, if I have a subscription, I really don't want these people to go above and beyond a certain budget. And you can set that within the Enterprise Portal. And I had this in preview, and it looks like it bounced back out, but it'll be coming soon to be able to go and see, because a lot of things around here are all around costs of what people are scared about. If we turn this on and we leave it up and running, who's going to be able to know to shut things off, or at the end of the month, you don't get surprised where one person thought that we were going to spend $300 and then you get a $3,000 bill at the end of the month. So inside, another piece that a lot of people want to see about on the administration side of this is going through and doing monitoring. Is right now they have different pieces that are, what's going on with my environment. And a lot of people use a bunch of different third-party tools. When you're running infrastructure as a service inside of Azure, most of those third-party tools work seamlessly because it's just another virtual machine that is running on a network somewhere, and those applications like SolarWinds or something like that will be able to monitor and see what's going on. But there's also different things in here that you can explore metrics, search logs, create alerts that are all done inside of Azure. So if you don't have those third-party tools, there's tools inside of Azure to help you do that. So you can go through and create alerts that are done from different metrics or different logs. You can, if something goes wrong, you can search and query and analyze logs to figure out what went wrong before, and so it's that you can try and make changes so it doesn't happen again. And as I said, these are all things that are built into Azure. There's some great tutorials and demos on these different things. going through and doing monitoring Azure, and those pieces. So I have about 3 minutes left, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. But so what we've gone through so far today is how to buy Azure, how to start to break up your subscription management and the governance around it. There's the Enterprise Portal that will help you do that. And then there's going through and doing the management of day-to-day things inside of Azure. And when you're going through and doing those day-to-day things, the biggest things that we've seen that people are looking for is the billing and reporting of, how much is this costing us? Are we going way over our budgets, or are we staying within our means here? So with that, I am going to open it up to any questions, and if you have questions, we could put them into the chat window that's on there. So I'll pause for a second and see if we have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions coming through, so I'm going to do a quick wrap up here. As I said, this is a part of a multiple series of webinars around Azure for state and local government. Went through a little bit of the Azure administration, how you buy Azure, subscription management and governance, the EA portal, going through access and permissions inside of Azure, and then wrapping it up with a little bit of billing and reporting. So if there are any questions going forward, please feel free to reply back to our invite and look for more things inside of Azure. One of the things that we've had a lot of success with our current clients is going through and doing some Azure administration training, or going through and doing what Microsoft has been calling the hack fests. And what we've done is it's partly educational on the first part of it, and then the second part of the hack fest is having people come in and bring their ideas of what they would like to do inside of Azure. And it could be anything from administration all the way through to development. And having people bring their ideas and go through in a 1 or 2 day scenario and start to try and bring these things to life. So I encourage you to attend more of the series that's coming up. And if there's no more questions, then I think that we can wrap it up. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a nice day.